You wonder where they are?
Today we're talking about Presence, a new psychological family drama from director Steven Soderbergh, starring Lucy Liu, Chris Sullivan, Callina Liang, Eddy Maday, and Julia Fox. Presence tells the story of the Paynes, a family that has recently moved into a house that is very evidently haunted by a, well, strange presence. Instead of the story being told from the perspective of the family being haunted, we get everything from the ghost point of view in first-person wide-angle lens perspectives. This is a nice inversion from the classic haunted house ghost story, feeling novel from the jump. Before we go any further, I'm gonna drop a spoiler warning, so now is your chance to pause this video, go watch Presence, and then come back and let me tell you how to feel about it. Let's knock out a couple of clear talking points. This is not a horror movie, at least it's not horrifying in the way that you would expect a movie of this genre to be. What it is a tense and methodical family drama with supernatural elements. Soderbergh leaves breadcrumbs from the very beginning, but all doesn't become clear until that earth-shattering ending. That's all to say, don't go into this expecting to be scared in the traditional sense. Knowing this before seeing the movie helped shift my expectations, and because of that, left me pleasantly surprised. This is the first and best movie of 2025 so far. Our characters are all relatively well written. Screenwriter David Koepp has worked on many Spielberg projects, notably penning the script for Jurassic Park. But the two characters that stick out the most are Chloe, played by Callina Liang, and Chris, played by Chris Sullivan. Chloe immediately picks up on the unsettling presence in the house, and Chris Sullivan carries the movie's weight as its unsung MVP. Seriously, he was my favorite character, just immediately lovable and so understanding of his daughter's trauma. Chris not only juggles what appears to be a strained marriage, but also is supporting and advocating for his daughter who is grieving the loss of her best friend. Not to mention the son Tyler, a self-centered, insecure brat looking to make a name for himself in their new school. Lucy Liu's Rebecca is effective only in that we don't really like her character all that much, and unfortunately this is one of the parts of the script's more underdeveloped beats. Never really get much insight into what exactly the nature of her work legal troubles are. There's also a strange and unanswered scene early on in the movie where it's revealed that Rebecca may have an inappropriate or unhealthy obsession with her son Tyler, doting upon him while quietly and emotionally punishing Chloe, who she claims is bringing the whole family down due to the grief she's experiencing. That said, there's always a favorite child in every family, right? At least in an emotionally immature family. Chloe gets some of the best development aside from Chris, and she is so colorfully drawn. At a dinner table sequence that involves a family blow up, she is adorned in bright yellow and orange, while the rest of the family is in drab, darker colors. Her light cannot be extinguished, though the movie's yet to be made clear antagonist has hopes to do so. Liang is incredible as the traumatized Chloe, and her grief and pain are central themes of the movie. Her experience is not linear. When she begins hooking up and experimenting with her brother's new friend and high school heartthrob Ryan, played with terrifying power by West Mulholland, then backpedaling and earnestly and honestly sharing that she doesn't feel she's in a place to pursue a relationship, we see that she is experiencing so much. Not to mention dealing with the specter that is moving her books around and collapsing her closet. Much like her grief, her emotions are up and down, just as unpredictable to her as the people around her. How Tyler approaches her, her mother's emotional neglect, as well as Ryan's deception all speak to the stages of grief that we deal with as humans. Voyeurism is nothing new in cinema. From Hitchcock to now, the camera has always been like a fly on the wall, and much like the Lakitu in Mario 64, there is a simultaneous interaction happening. Recently, Soderbergh has become known for handling the camera work in his movies, and his performance as the ghost's POV is one of the movie's great strengths. While the lighting and visual effects enhance the apparition's powers, it's in the way the camera is utilized that adds a human quality to its presence. Several key scenes in the movie involve the ghost looking through the slits of Chloe's closet. The camera turns and buries its head in the clothing when Chloe eventually decides to sleep with Ryan. At first, this adds a playful, childlike quality that we, along with the ghost, are witnessing something we probably shouldn't be seeing and may not be understanding. But this perception is changed as we get to the ending. The house is just as much a character as the rest rest of the family. Something that occurred to me throughout is that we don't get those usual scenes we get in a movie like this. Nothing really takes place in the attic or the basement. There's an effective editing choice that makes everything essentially a vignette. Things happen, then it cuts to black, and then things pick up again somewhere else. Other events may have happened, but we don't see them because the ghost didn't see them, or the ghost isn't sharing them. Minutes may pass, even hours, days, months. After the spectral explosion that happens in Tyler's bedroom upon the revelation that he and his friends pranked a young girl by circulating a lewd photo of her, the family decides to bring in a psychic that their realtor recommends. That photo leak, we find out, also led to that young girl having a complete mental breakdown. The psychic then drops some important expositional dialogue, that the present is uncertain and confused to why it's in the house, but that there is a reason it's here. It's clear that it knows something is going on, but its sense of time is fragmented. Much like grief, the presence is trying to process and understand why it's come to arrive in this house. The story of the Paynes explains that. I began to forget that the ghost is our primary storyteller, getting swept up in the intimate moments we get with the family. The father-daughter connection, Tyler's blow-ups, Rebecca's understated stress and inability to accept reality, these are all real experiences we have as human beings. The family drama aspect is the core strength of this movie. But when it becomes evident that the ghost is much more involved with the Payne's reality than we originally thought, the movie takes an intriguing and seductive twist, adding a cerebral tension. Soderbergh's work in the final moments of the movie is masterful. The reveal that Ryan is the killer feels a little bit unearned, but the character beat for Tyler that follows after adds an emotional gut punch to the ending, furthered by an even swifter kick in the heart that left me mouth agape, tears welling in my sockets. There's a sobering power to this film, one that I hope is not lost and swept up by the poor marketing campaign for this movie. If it fails in the box office, it will certainly find notoriety once it hits streaming. The breadcrumb element of the movie is part of what's fun after the credits roll. When it's revealed that the ghost has been Tyler all along, though my initial thought was maybe it would be Nadia, or potentially Tyler would just join whatever presence had already been haunting them, it lit my brain on fire. But all became clear as I looked back at the clues that Soderbergh and co. left behind for the viewer. The clues I enjoyed the most were the ones framed on Chloe's bedroom wall. Pictures of her recently deceased friend Nadia, family photos, an illustration of a woman's bottom, and nearer to the top, and almost always clear in the frame, is a painting of a bird, most likely a swan, entangled in the nude body of a woman. For those unfamiliar, this is almost certainly a reference to the story of Leda and the Swan. It's an old myth about the god Zeus taking the form of a swan in order to Leda, which would then lead her to bear some of his children. While there is not a god complex, so to speak, in presence, the god of it all is a little bit on display with the notion of the afterlife. More importantly, this image set me the on edge. I knew then that some kind of essay was going to happen, and it was satisfying to discover that that was part of Ryan's motives, only because I enjoy when a movie telegraphs and leaves little visual cues like that for the audience to pick up on. Another interesting detail is that the swan painting and other pictures on Chloe's wall appear kind of warped and reimagined, a detail that could be made up in my head, but I feel was purposeful. Because once we realize that this is all the ghost of Tyler trying to recontextualize and save his sister, his fading and rebuilt memory would cause everything to feel garbled and restructured in a weird way, much like what would happen if you feed a prompt into AI. Houses themselves are frightening entities. I have been obsessed with the haunted house genre ever since I read Mark Z. Danielewski's House of Leaves. Presence allows for those house sounds and settlings to be manifested in this creative reinventing of the genre, placing the audience in the perspective of the presence that is reworking and recircuiting the nodules of this family in distress. Sound design is aided greatly by an understated score from Zach Ryan, adding emotion and punch where it's needed without removing any tension. That's all to say, this movie really worked for me, and it was similar to the way that Kyle Edward Ball's Skinamarink worked on me. I'd argue that Presence is less scary and more moving. It's a film with a big heart, and given that it's loosely based on a haunting Soderbergh himself experienced, that adds an extra oomph to the movie's messaging on grief. What did you think of Presence? Was it too slow for your taste, or did you enjoy the satisfying mystery laid out? Leave all the comments below, and before you go, don't forget to like and smash that subscribe button. Thank you all so much for watching this video and continuing to support the channel. Till next time, you should be aware, there's a presence here. It's trying to figure you out. It's trying to connect with you.
Like, the world cracks apart.